Something different to look at today. It's the Weebill 3E Gimbal, and they've sent this in for a review, so I'm going to try and keep this video quite short. Some of your included items, the user manual and your warranty card. 2 USB cables are included, and you get a hex key and a screw bolt for the plate. Here's the plate, made from anodized aluminium. It's around about 12 centimeters in length. This is wider than the standard Arca style ones, just in case you're wondering. This is the included mini tripod. That is plastic, but it does feel quite sturdy. Rubber tips on each of the 3 legs to give some grip when it's on smooth surfaces, and it's surprisingly stable even with a load on there. There's a rubber pad there with the 1/4 inch thread, so that's a standard tripod thread. Onto the gimbal now, so we'll take a look at that in more detail. There's your Type-C charging port on the main handle, the built-in battery on that, around about 2 to 3 hours charging time. There's the port for the camera control, and that will give you access to the settings on the camera when it's plugged in, such as the aperture and shutter, etc. There is an app available, and you can also connect it via Bluetooth for the shutter control. Joystick, record button and the mode button as well. Powering it up, there's your OLED display. It's quite easy to see this even outside in bright light. There's your power menu, and there's a jog dial there which has a push function as well. There's a trigger on the back, and there's another dial at the bottom, so it's quite configurable. You can go into the menus and adjust this how you want to. This is from the PDF user manual, and that gives you an idea of some of the controls with this. On the underside we have some brass screw threads. This is 1/4 inch, again standard tripod thread. Construction on this feels pretty solid. They've got rubber grips on the handle, and the top parts are all made out of metal. Again, it's the same anodized aluminium. As it's going to have to hold a bit of weight, you do need something which is quite robust. You'll notice that we have lock switches on all of the 3 axes. So all you do is flip them up to unlock and then push it back down. It will automatically relock back in the set position. And that makes it very easy to collapse it again so that you can transport it around without taking up too much space. As you'd expect with a gimbal, there are plenty of adjusters so that you can get the balance as you need it. And that will vary depending on the camera and lens that you're using. And you need to do that reasonably accurately so that you can get a good position to start from. There is a compatibility list for this, so you can have a look at that just to see the models that it will work with. That includes quite a lot of the mirrorless cameras, as you'd expect, but you can also fit some DSLRs on here as well. There are safety locks to prevent it from coming out by accident, so you don't need to worry about that. It's worth pointing out I'm not an experienced videographer or an experienced gimbal user. Take this video from what it is, someone who is a bit of a novice in this area. With that in mind, I found it reasonably straightforward getting things set up in terms of the unit. There's also an automatic setting, so it will calibrate the motors for the torque, because it will need to vary that depending on the load that you're using. If you're not that experienced, you'll need to look at the user guide to see which of the modes you might want to be in and how to set them up. It doesn't really give you a lot of information on how to use a gimbal though, so you'll probably want to start looking at some tutorials, and there's some quite good videos online for that. I found I had to look at some information on this just to see how to use the gimbal properly, because it isn't as straightforward and simple as it seems. Joystick is quite responsive to the touch. You will find that with slight presses it will turn very slowly, and if you push harder it will move faster. I would recommend using this on a bigger tripod if you're doing a lot of these pan shots. Although it is fairly stable, you do have to touch it, unless of course you want to use the phone app, and you do have some control over the gimbal with that. It's not too bad for a handheld panning shot, although it could be a bit more stable. With the walking though, I found that took quite a bit of practice. You can see here that it's that bobbing up and down effect, even though I'm moving quite slowly. If you're less experienced like me, you'll find that it does take a bit more work to try and get some fairly decent results. This panning shot worked out quite well considering it was handheld as well. And eventually I got to the stage where I was able to move a bit quicker and get reasonably stable footage. I could have made the turn a bit more subtly on that, but it certainly wasn't too bad considering I was moving a bit faster. The quick start guide is really quite basic. I would have liked to have seen something included to give you some hints and tips on using the gimbal or which modes you might want to be in. I would have liked a bit more shape on the grip as well. It's quite straight, a bit more of a curve, and that would have helped with the ergonomics. I would recommend the mini tripod screwed into the base because that does help with the stability and comfort. There is an add-on handle and a wrist rest which you can buy, but that isn't included in the package. Aside from the documentation and a few other small points, I think it's a pretty good gimbal overall, particularly for someone who is starting out or getting used to using one of these. That pretty much wraps it up for me on this quick look, but if you've got any thoughts, I would be interested to hear them, and as usual, thanks for watching.